welcome back to my channel. I am still not in my apartment, but I am in a different apartment than I was in my last video. And I'm going to be bringing to you 3 new DIYs that I did, you know, still not at home, so still with some random supplies that I've pre-packed. And I'm super excited for this video because we're going to be tackling 3 very random DIYs that all have new principles that I've learned that I can hopefully teach to you. All of them are going to be items that I'm converting that were super old originally. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first DIY up is going to be working on none other than a basketball stool. At least I think that's what it is. I'm pretty sure it's either a basketball stool or a basketball footstool. Either way, meant for a child. If you know exactly what it is, then let me know because I'm just taking a guess here. The very surprising thing about this item is just how heavy it is. It is at least 20 pounds and I didn't anticipate this when I picked it up at the thrift store. So I went to pick it up off of this shelf and I dropped it onto the table underneath it because it was just so heavy, and I just was thinking that it would be like, I don't know, max 5 pounds. It's super heavy, it's concrete on the inside, and we're going to be transforming it into a plant stand.
So when I got this basketball stool home, the most random thing started happening. It started leaking some sort of water-ish substance, and when I flipped it over, you can see it's actually coming from that black center part. So I decided to take out a knife and cut open that little covering, which ended up just being a sticker. And then I noticed the inside was wet. It was a cement type product, although it looks like clay, and it definitely had some water. So I drained it of all of the water in the shower, and then I just took some duct tape and closed up any of those holes. And then once that was all good to go, I set that aside. And here comes an amazing Ikea hack that I figured out using the soiree placemats. And it is basically taking these placemats apart to use the natural fibers as cording. And I was not sure at all whether or not this would work when I purchased these for this project, but I was so happy when it did work out perfectly. And for the first placemat that I'm using here, I didn't take it fully apart. I left about an 8-inch circle that was still braided together, and that was just kind of a time-saving factor. And next up, I took out my hot glue gun and added a generous amount, and then I put that circle piece right on top. After that, I just started adding some hot glue line by line around that circle and just adding that cording down onto the hot glue. I was super happy because it stuck in place perfectly with the hot glue. Like, it was insanely hard to peel off if I had to. Once I used all of the cording from that first placemat, I just went ahead and took a second one and did the exact same thing, basically cutting off the edge, unraveling it, and turning it into cording. I then went ahead and glued the edge on and just continued on with wrapping it all the way around this basketball stool. Once I had all of the cording attached, I noticed that there were some little spots where you could see some orange, so I just put some hot glue in those holes and added a tiny piece of the cord, and that worked perfectly. And you guys, I'm in love with my brand new plant stand.
How cool is it that you can totally unwind the Ikea placemat and convert it into cording that you can use for anything? I have so many ideas in my head, and I hope that this gave you some ideas as well. Honestly, part of me was really concerned that when I bought like 4 of these to take with me to DIY, because I got them several months ago, part of me was very concerned that it wasn't actually going to work. Like, for some reason, when I tried to unravel it, it was going to be like glued together or like sewn through it, but it totally wasn't. It was just woven together, and with a little bit of unweaving, you can totally have some beautiful natural texture fiber cord that you pretty much can't buy in North America. I actually tried to buy this exact thing several months ago and I could not find it anywhere because it's a natural resource in Asia, but it's not a natural resource here. Here all you can find is paper cording, so literally made out of craft paper, but this is the real deal, you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed this DIY and you like how this plant stand turned out. So the next DIY up is going to be transforming this old flower pot bowl, I guess we'll call it, and it actually has an old flower arrangement in it. I really like the shape of the bowl, so I thought, we can definitely transform this into something that is of this century in the color schemes that I like. Now the really cool thing about this one is we're going to be using caulking once again to transform this piece into a beauty. And I have worked with caulking before, except the last time I worked with it, I did that beautiful rainbow arch piece, but I used caulking that was not paintable. However, this time I picked up stuff that was paintable and that also was cheaper and that also had less of a smell. It was great to work with. I highly, highly recommend it. And I really think you're gonna like this project. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
So when I was at the thrift store, I saw this light pink / coral flower pot that had a weird looking flower arrangement in it, not gonna lie, but I decided to take it home and here it is in all its glory. The first thing I'm gonna do is take out that flower arrangement, and it left this weird residue at the bottom. It might be floral foam, but I tried to remove it with a knife and that didn't really work all that much. So then I went ahead and put it in the sink, added some water, and scraped it away after a couple minutes, and that worked out great. Once the flower bowl was all dry, I went ahead and grabbed this caulking, which I will link down below, and I basically just started by adding this caulking onto the inside of the bowl, and I tried to spread it with a plastic knife, and then I kind of switched to using my hands through a plastic bag. Once it was kind of covered on the inside, I went ahead and added some thick layers onto the outside. You guys, it got really messy. Like, my hands were totally so messy, and part of me thinks it would have been easier if I just applied it all together with my hands, but either way, the bag method worked out. After about 30 minutes of it drying, I went ahead and just touched it to see if it was dry, and it totally wasn't. So I just had to wait some more time, and then after it was dry, I went ahead and grabbed some gold spray paint and added a good layer on the inside of the bowl as well as on the outside of the bowl. I also flipped it upside down, I flipped it right way up, I added it all over, and I really love the look of the gold spray paint on this. It's really metallic and does a beautiful job at emphasizing the texture of the caulking.
So it's totally the middle of the winter, and to avoid the fumes of the caulking, I decided to do this project outside. So you can imagine that my little fingers were so cold. I cannot explain how much like icicles they were. It was painful to do that in such cold weather. So yeah, highly recommend doing this project in a garage if you have one instead of outside, but it worked out. I do just have to say though, if I were to do one thing differently with this project, I would have actually added more caulking onto the bowl. Now, I actually bought 2 tubes of caulking, but I only applied the first one because, like I mentioned, my hands were so cold that I just couldn't fathom staying out there longer and adding more on. So if you want more texture to the whole piece, add more caulking. But either way, I like how this project turned out. I love the effect of the paint, and I hope you liked it as well. So I just want to take a brief intermission and tell you a little bit more about Skillshare because they are the sponsor of today's video. And as you know, I've been using Skillshare for ages and I love them so much. It really helps me to expand in new ways. That has honestly helped me so much with my creativity and so much on YouTube and so much with my DIYs. Gotta be honest here. So if you haven't heard of them before, they offer thousands of unique classes in so many different areas that are all so interesting. So literally, if you're interested in productivity, they've got you with classes. If you're interested in creative writing or creative drawing, animation, photography, videography, the whole gambit, they have you. I actually just watched such an interesting class this morning that I highly recommend. It was called Hand Lettering in Procreate, Fundamentals to Final Touches, and it was by Gia Graham. It's so good because it basically teaches you how to do professional hand lettering in Procreate. I have an iPad, I have Procreate, I have the Apple Pencil, and I occasionally doodle in there and I try and do letters, and before now, they weren't very good. But now I have all those skills because the Skillshare class literally teaches you how to do it step by step. It has lessons and I highly, highly recommend it. And that's just one example. Now, if you're interested in trying Skillshare, they're always super kind and generous, and they offer 1,000 of my subscribers a free trial of their premium membership by clicking the link in my description box. And after the free trial ends, you can either cancel your membership or continue on for under $10 a month. And honestly, if you are interested in Skillshare, it would mean a lot to me if you sign up for the free trial through my link, because I really want this partnership to be a success and I love working with them so much. Without further ado, let's get back into the DIYs. So next up, we have this wall sconce that is definitely very old. I said in one of the stories here on YouTube and on Instagram actually that I thought that the light was at least 50 years old, and then someone commented back and said, actually, this has to be at least 100 years old. Like, look at it. And she's totally right. Like, when she said that and I did the math of how old it had to be because of everything about it, the structure, the workmanship, the glass pieces on it, like everything about it totally had to be at least 100 years old. So to be honest, and maybe it's just a me thing, but when I see a light that's wired into wood and that is clearly so old, I don't really feel comfortable from a safety perspective using it as an actual wall sconce light with electricity going through it. However, when I saw it, I got super inspired to transform it into something completely different, a candle holder, and I like that it's also linked to light because it's candle versus, you know, electric light. Without further ado, let's get started with turning this wall sconce light into a candle holder.
So this is the thrifted wall sconce that I was just talking about. It was only $4.99. And I'm just going to start by taking it apart actually. So I did a little test here and I can tell that it's possible to unscrew the top of the light, but then you get to this part where the wire is attached to the rest of it. So I grabbed my trusty wire cutters and just cut that off. Once that was cut, I could remove that top brass piece as well as the main glass globe section, and those are actually the two pieces that we're going to be using for the candle holder. Next up, I wanted to change the color of the candle holder so that it's not glass. So for that, I'm grabbing my paint in the color Unbleached Titanium, and I'm just pouring it out onto a plate, and then I also have just added in a little bit of white paint to lighten it ever so slightly. And then for some added texture, I'm adding some baking soda, you know, the drill. Ever since that method came out, I've never stopped doing it. And you guys, this part is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just taking my paintbrush and adding this paint mixture onto our new candle holder. I'm making sure to add a really generous coat on there, and it goes on really thick and covers the whole thing really well. And then for that top brass piece that I showed you earlier, I'm going to actually be bringing it back to life with some gold spray paint. So I just gave that a nice quick coat, waited for it to dry, and then with some hot glue, I glued it on top. And just like that, you guys, I am in love with my new candle holder.
Okay, so the truth of the matter is I love all three of these projects, as I always do. Otherwise, I would probably take them out of the video. But it is time for me to hear from you about which project is your favorite, or you can also share your ranking with me. I love when people do that as well. I'm gonna share my ranking with you from most favorite to least favorite, as I always do in every single video. So starting off with my top favorite, I'm gonna have to say it is the plant stand. I think it is so cool, it's so aesthetic, fits right into my vibe. I am definitely going to keep this guy. I love that it's a great way to upcycle those IKEA placemats and to get that natural fiber in my home. Next to that, I'm gonna have to say is the wall sconce turned candle holder. I think it is so adorable, and it honestly makes me so happy to see something transformed from being super old and a little bit sketchy to being perfectly good to use and modern and lovely. I love how it turned out. I think it's a beautiful color and a beautiful shape, and it looks definitely store-bought. So that one is going to have to be my second most favorite. And last but not least is the bowl. Now it probably would have come up in its ranks if I did add some more caulking onto it to add even more texture. But alas, I did not. So here we are. It is in last place, even though I do still love it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and for subscribing. And if you haven't already, please check me out over on Instagram. I'm at DIY Dalia with an underscore at the end. That would mean so much to me. So thank you so much. And I'll see you next week, actually. I've been uploading every single week for the past several weeks, and it's been good so far. Hopefully you're enjoying it. So I will see you guys next week. Bye.